Hello everybody, and welcome to part 13 of the Star Wars Legends Chronological Review series. Today will be a hopefully quick but an important one, as we are going to be covering the first two tabletop RPG scenarios in the Star Wars timeline. However, before we start that, I have an announcement to make. So starting with my next Star Wars Legends review, which is going to be part 14, I'm actually going to be publishing these videos on a new channel. This new channel will be completely dedicated to this series, as well as some book reviews for perhaps some books in the new canon that I happen to be reading, as well as maybe just other things like books from other series or even movies that I might have watched recently. The Star Wars and booktuber sphere of YouTube is one that I've really come to enjoy, and I like to have one video completely dedicated to that, while I reserve this channel to focus on the more infrequently posted long-term content like icebergs and stuff like that. So if you want to continue following this series, make sure you head over onto that new channel. It's somewhere down there in the description. Alright, so as I was saying, we are going to be covering Star Wars tabletop RPG scenarios. So since 1987, Star Wars has had its own dedicated role-playing game, which was published by West End Games until 1998 when they lost the license to Wizards of the Coast. Basically, it's like Star Wars Dungeons & Dragons. You create your own character within the Star Wars universe, and you have certain attributes and abilities that help you through the story and battles that your game master constructs for you. However, we're not going to be playing games like that, where we're playing with multiple people and the story has been constructed for us by someone who's, not an official Star Wars publisher. Instead, we're going to be playing some smaller scale single player scenarios that have been given to us by certain things like magazines or companion books. These RPGs won't be especially important to the overall lore of the timeline. A lot of these are pretty obscure, and as such, a lot of them are going to be covered in only really more minor episodes. But because they are technically story content that cover a specific narrative, I am going to be covering them one by one, even if I end up getting really tired of them. Basically, the game starts after you read the start of the story, and then after you read certain passages, you're given a set of numbers, and if you roll a dice and they land on that number, that determines where your character goes next. For example, in the first RPG we're going to cover, called Jedi Protector, it starts with a passage labeled with the number 1, and at the end of this passage, the game tells you to roll 2d6 dice. And so if you roll a 4 or lower, it tells you to go on to passage 2, but if you roll a 5 or higher, it tells you to go on to passage 3, and so on. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure novel, but instead of choosing where to go yourself, your choices are determined by the roll of a die. At first I thought I might just, look over these and cover just the story content of these game scenarios and whatever canon ending they may have, because they do have multiple endings, because, I thought it would just be too boring and too time consuming to play them the way that they were intended, and I've got a lot of stuff to cover and not a lot of time. But actually, it's a lot simpler than that, and after looking through a couple of these scenarios, I think that the most fun way to go about it would be actually to record myself playing these, at least these first couple in this video, so that you guys can see what it's like. And I think it would be fun to kind of describe the results I'm getting in real time, and if I end up getting a different ending than whatever the canon ending is, I can tell you guys that as well. Alright, so our first scenario we will be covering is titled Jedi Protector, and is taken from the 13th issue of the Star Wars Galaxy magazine, which was published back in November 1997. Looking through this magazine, it actually has some really cool pieces of information. It's kind of like a time capsule of what Star Wars was like back in 1997. There's a few interviews with people working on the Tales of the Jedi comics, and there's also this really cool behind the scenes article about the production of the Phantom Menace that talks about some of the practical sets, like the Naboo hangar and Anakin's apartment. But one thing that really caught my eye was this page that talks about how some of the Star Wars props are going to the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. for a year. Something about this page reminded me of something, and I eventually dug up this image of me and my brother at the museum during a vacation to Washington, D.C. with what I assume is this exact same C-3PO prop. This picture was taken long after 1997, so I guess those props eventually did make a return to the museum, but I thought this was a cool coincidence. One of the things I'm trying to do in this series is inject a little bit of my own personal history with Star Wars, and every once in a while tell a cool story or show something about myself through the material we come across. Anyway, this RPG scenario titled Jedi Protector puts us in the shoes of the young Jedi Shalava around the year 4000 BBY. Our master, Ortrag, has left us on a colony planet populated by bean farmers and nerf herders. We've already solved some minor disputes among the colonists, but when one of the nerf herders mysteriously vanishes near a dark ravine, it's time to take action. Okay, so I actually do have a set of dice with me right now, but I figure it would probably be better for me to actually show, roll the dice on the computer screen so that you guys can see. Make sure I'm not cheating. Alright, so You continue up the ravine looking for signs of the missing nerf herder. In one hand, you hold your lightsaber aloft, providing the only illumination besides the rare patches of sunlight that filter through the thick thorn vines, yada yada yada. So basically just giving a nice description of the surroundings. Although your normal vision and hearing reveal little else, Master Ortrag taught you how to fine-tune your senses and increase their range. Use the Jedi power of Magnify Senses. Shalava's character stats show that any sense powers he uses have a score of 2d. To use Shalava's power of Magnify Senses, roll 2 dice. Toss the 2 dice and see what you get. Alright, so if I roll a 4 or lower, I feel the force flowing through me as I examine my surroundings, and I go to number 2, but if I roll a 5 or higher, I sense something else and I go to number 3. So I'm assuming this is a d6, right? 6. Okay, so I rolled a 5 or higher, I go to number 3. As I allow the force to flow through me, heightening my senses, I notice that some vines are thicker than the other leafy ones. These thick vines have larger thorns on them and they smell different from the others. Less like plants and more like animals. Concentrate further and hear their soft rustling. They're moving. You leap out of the way just as a vine whips out and tries to ensnare you with its thorns. Several other tentacles dart at you. Your only hope is to fight the vines off with your lightsaber. Shalava's skill with this elegant Jedi weapon is 5d2. So roll 5 dice and add 2 to the total. Okay. Am I allowed to roll multiple at once? How do I do this? Alright, so I figured out how to add multiple die. So we have to roll 5. Alright, 15. 14 or lower, so I rolled a 15 or higher, just barely. You managed to slice through one of the vines, go to number 4. You continue striking at any thorny tentacle that comes near you. When you slice off the last tentacle, you hear a blood-curdling scream from high up in the leafy vegetation. A large leafy ball drops from the canopy. Broad leaves surround a toothy mouth. Several thick vines grow around the mouth's edge. You've severed most of them. The maw is lined with Rager substrikes. This is just the Drengir from the High Republic. If you don't know, there's like these plant villains from the High Republic that want to eat people. And this is this literally them? The creature's writhing in pain. You make one final lunge with your lightsaber, cleave the monster in two, and silence its cries. A dark cloaked figure emerges from the shadows in the ravine. You have done well, my student, Master Ortrag says. You have proven your skill with the traditional Jedi weapon. Now perhaps you are ready for further challenges. There are other ills plaguing this galaxy. The colonists can settle their own disputes and protect themselves. You are ready to fight a greater evil. It says please go to number 7. Oh. Now you have some idea what role-playing games are about. Okay, so I guess I'm done. Well, I guess that was a charming little story. It was very short. It was a lot shorter than I was expecting it to be. And of course you guys saw me like reacting to it live. I guess in my opinion it's a perfect little introduction to Star Wars tabletop RPGs. It was very simple and straightforward. So the characters and the conflict really, they aren't important at all, really. I'm pretty sure that most of the protagonists and the other characters in these RPGs, if they're original characters, they're probably not going to pop up again or be referenced later or really do all that much that's important, but hey, if I'm wrong on that, we'll wait and see. I'm not sure if there's too much to glean or figure out about the overall Star Wars universe from this, I guess, other than that, you know, Jedi were acting as peacekeepers around 4000 BBY, but I think we could already figure that out. It feels like the placement of this timeline doesn't really matter too much, other than it takes place around the Tales of the Jedi comics, which were being published around the same time. It really feels like that they could have just had this story take place at any point between now and the Clone Wars when the Jedi fall. So overall, nice story, great introduction. That's it, I guess. Okay, so we do have one more little adventure here from the Tales of the Jedi companion book, and it's titled The Ruins of Kabus-Dabeh, which is dated to around 4000 BBY as well. This one also follows another young Jedi, this time one by the name of Keval Rafan, as he attempts to settle a dispute over land on the planet Muzara between the native Muza species and a group of human settlers. And in order to prove the young Jedi worthy of mediating between the two groups, the Muza sent him to the ancient ruins of Kabus-Dabeh to retrieve a sack of coins. This RPG is functionally essentially the same as the last one, but the introduction section includes a lot more rules for player stats and dice rolls that make it seem a lot closer to D&D in terms of gameplay and complexity. However, because this is still just a simple solo adventure, for any skills that we are going to want to use, we are simply again given a dice roll to switch between different passages. Oh, this is cool. We get like a little background on the character. It looks like grew up on Chandrilla, but we eventually became a Jedi later in life, but let's see. First you had difficulties. After all, your schooling prepared you for negotiations, not for complex lightsaber techniques. Yeah, it's like we might have a little difficulty putting trust in the Force, but that's nothing we can't handle, right? Members of your kind have chosen you as adjudicator in this conflict. You must meet our standards before we can accept your judgment. To the north lies a deep-cut canyon in Kabus-Dabeh, yada yada yada. One of our bravest protectors has placed a scum-hide bag of metal coins somewhere in the ruin. You must find this bag and return it here. If you persevere, you will prove your worth. If you do not, we will not regard you as an honorable negotiator. Alright, so number 1, we carefully approach the cave mouth. Very little daylight enters inside. Looks like the cavern goes deeper into the rock. Fortunately, you didn't bring along a glow rod, but your lightsaber could provide a meager source of light. Okay, wait, this is interesting. We just get to choose where to go. We don't actually have to roll any die. Maybe was I wrong when I said that we had to do a dice roll like the last one? We can either use our Jedi power to magnify our senses to discover anything. We proceed in the cave without a light source, or we can ignite our lightsaber and go in. I'm gonna do that one. Number 17. With a snap hiss, your lightsaber ignites. It provides enough illumination for you to see the cave floor and a little way ahead. You still proceed with caution. You round a bed in the passage and freeze as a raspy voice cries out, "The light! It burns Togarn's eyes! Shut it off! Shut it off!" You turn off your lightsaber. Yeah, don't want to hurt this guy's eyes. Go to number 8. Ahead you see 2 shining yellow orbs moving in unison. Drawing closer, you realize they are eyes, the light of which illuminates the cavern in a dull glow. The creature they are attached to seems little more than a wide mouth surmounted by the lantern-like eyes. 2 tiny clawed feet scratch anxiously at the ground. You hear a swooshing sound behind this creature, but its eyes do not illuminate far into the cavern. You approach carefully, go to 10. The creature bids you to come closer. When it opens its mouth to speak, it bristles with needle-like teeth and is filled with the bloated tongue. "Who are you?" it croaks. "And what are you doing at Togarn's cave?" Its breath reeks of decay, and its glowing eyes watch you hungrily. You introduce yourself. The creature nods. "Togarn knows about the sack, keeps it at the back of the cave." I don't know what this guy's supposed to look like. Is he like Gollum or more like Yoda? His entire body shudders as he tries to move on the anemic feet. You stumble back into the darkness looking for the sack. Go to number 7. You can't see it, but something large and heavy is swinging around back there. Whatever it is, it swipes at you. To avoid getting hit, use your dodge skill of 4D. Oh, I had OBS on over here the whole time. Silly me. Okay, let's roll our die. What is it? 4D? Okay. Let's roll 4 of these. We got a total of 17. So that's a 12 or higher, so we go to 11. You dodge just in time. Something heavy swings by you, almost bashing you in the head. Now it's your move. Do we ignite our lightsaber to see what's attacking us, or do we use it to attack? Let's just see. Let's just check it out right now. We don't want to give in to violence too quickly. Whoa. Tales of the Jedi spread. Looks like I went too far. Alright, well, let's ignite our lightsaber to attack whatever swiped at us. Number 19. Okay, so igniting your lightsaber, you see the nearest target is a large, fleshy tail sporting several spikes. To successfully strike it is a moderate task with a difficulty number of 15. Your lightsaber skill is 3D plus 1. Roll 3 dice, add 1 to find your lightsaber skill total. So, 3D plus 1, 10. Uh-oh. We did not roll a 15 or higher. So, let's go to 25. Scroll past some comics. 25. You swing your lightsaber at the tail and miss. Perhaps you lashed out too quickly, or allowed your fear or anger to cloud your judgment. Now you must suffer the consequences of your hasty attack. Go to 24. If I could read 24, that would be nice. Let's see. Your ignited lightsaber has a terrifying effect on Togarn. Upon seeing the bright blade, the creature shuts his eye slits. Togarn hates the light. Oh, the tail's actually part of Togarn? Yeah, while Togarn is distracted, you carefully back away from him and leave the cavern. This is a creature of darkness, one that might have led you astray and done great harm. Jedi are merciful, not vengeful. Rather than torment this monstrosity anymore, you hastily retreat out of the cavern and into daylight. Alright, so I have the option to explore more ruins, but if I haven't found the bag of metal coins yet, and I'd like to give up... No, I don't want to give up. Go to the numbered map entry. Is there a map here? This is confusing. This is a lot different than the other one. Dark Pond, Stone Well, Pyramidal Monument. Sounds like the Pyramidal Monument might have something interesting there. The large pyramidal structure overshadows the ruins. It consists of several square rock platforms set one atop the other. Their surfaces are smooth, upper edges, yada yada. Okay, looking at the top level, you see a pedestal with a scum hideback perched on it. This seems almost too easy. It probably is then. Yeah, I'm gonna warily search around the staircase for any traps. Go to number 63. That sounds smart. To find any triggers or traps on the staircase is a moderate task, difficulty number 15, so 3D plus 1. Okay. Sounds like we're not gonna have too much luck again, but let's see. Oh, just barely. 14. If you roll a 14 or lower, go to 66. 66. You look around the lower end of the structure, but find nothing except two grotesque stone statues guarding each side of the staircase. They're similar to the ones guarding the corners of each level. Both of their fanged mouths open and they face the top of the pyramid. Well, might as well climb the stairs. Go to 70. Along the way, you feel the stone statues staring. Alright, well, reach the top. You find a pedestal with the bag. Yeah, anytime it gives us the option to search for any snares or traps, we're gonna take that. 74. Successfully finding any traps is an easy task. Skill difficulty number of 7. 3D plus 1. Alright, let's roll again. Alright, we rolled a 10, so 10 plus 1, 11. So we're good. So 7 or higher, go to 79. Search around the entire upper platform, concentrating especially. Seems the pedestal can be lowered into the structure, either by pushing it or lifting the bag from it. Oh wait, so if I made a search roll or 12... Now I'm getting a little bit confused. Let's just grab the bag. You reach for the bag. If you close the statues' mouths earlier, go to 72. Otherwise, go to 77. That doesn't sound good. You take the sack from the pedestal. Inside you find it isn't filled with old metal coins, but with small stones. The bag was a diversion. I imagine that's an Indiana Jones reference. Suddenly, the entire structure shudders. You hear a grinding sound deep beneath your feet. You're sinking into the platform. You turn to run down the stairs, but instead you find a solid stone wall. There's only one way to escape. You must climb the rock walls. Doing so is a difficult task with a number of 20. Roll 2 dice and add 1 to get your climbing total. This is a good time to use your force point to double your skill roll. Okay, I don't think I've mentioned that. But you get, I don't know how many, but you get a certain amount of force points to basically plot armor your way out of some of these scenarios. So I haven't used it yet, so I might as well. So if we roll a 40 plus 1, that's probably the only way we're going to get more than 20. 13, okay. Never mind. 19 or lower, go to 75. Great. You try climbing the wall, but your grip is too weak and you don't find enough hand and footfolds. The platform continued descending into a murky underground lake. As you splash into the water, you realize there's a sinister creature lurking down there, and it's very, very hungry. This is just getting worse and worse, isn't it? This looks like the end of our adventure. Go to 80. Oh. Now you see how your character works in the game. Wow. I guess I just died, didn't I? Damn. Okay, so turns out what we were supposed to do is go down into the dry well and through a cavern, which would lead us out to the sack. So I think through a combination of bad luck and poor decision making, I ended up being led astray. I'm sorry, guys. So this one is actually way different from the last one. Instead of having a dice roll create the outcome of each of our events, we actually got to choose them for ourselves, and every once in a while we encountered a challenge that we had to roll our dice for. So it was a lot longer, a lot of different options and turnarounds, which that was fun. I enjoyed that one more than the last one. Again, I don't anticipate any details of the story to, come up in any of these other like canon entries like books or games or anything like that. But still, I think if anything, it tells us not to be too hasty and maybe think a little bit more about our the decisions we have to make as Jedi. Do not give in to, impatience and anger, or else you'll awaken the ancient creature in the cave and piss him off and fall in a lake or something. Am I even going to keep any of that in? I don't know. So one other thing I did want to bring up is that at the end of this Ruins of Kabus-Dabeh adventure scenario, there's a list of 3 other scenarios on the same planet that says that you can act out with a game master and some friends. And so I looked these up, and they are considered canon, but considering I need other people to play those, and these RPGs don't matter too much, I think I am going to leave out those multiplayer ones, as much as it hurts that I'm technically leaving out canonical material in the timeline. I don't think I'm going to be losing out on too much by doing that. I think doing these single player ones is enough. Also, these multiplayer scenarios are a lot more open-ended, so I think that they don't really have like a single canon ending, which makes their role in the timeline a lot fuzzier. So all of the reading lists I used, like from Wikipedia and StarWarsReadingOrder.com, don't even list these multiplayer scenarios. They only list the single player ones in their timeline. So I'm not going to really change anything about the reading list that I already had spent months working on. So, but those scenarios are out there if you want to explore them with your friends. Okay, well, so I guess in conclusion, I had a lot more fun doing those scenarios than I thought. I actually did these a long time ago when I was actually first writing the script for this, and I was surprised by the Ruins of Kabus-Dabeh. I didn't expect that I would just roll bad roll after bad roll, and maybe I messed up in certain points. Maybe I'm pretty sure for one of them I forgot to add like a +1 that would have gotten me through it. So yeah, I can already hear the comments about that. But honestly, I had fun with it. It was short. I guess we get a brief glimpse into what life is like for like an average young Jedi, but it's mostly just things that we already knew that the Jedi were doing, like solving disputes, like the border dispute on Ancion and Attack of the Clones. It's just random little things like that, which is nice because a lot of these Tales of the Jedi comics basically just see us just see the Jedi fighting wars, and that's not all the Jedi are supposed to do. Obviously it's called Star Wars, but I like things like, the High Republic that show the Jedi as peacekeepers as well, and I think these are charming little stories that show a slightly more peaceful side of the Star Wars universe that we just don't see that often. I would say though, only go after these RPG scenarios for yourself if you really, really want to be a Star Wars Legends completionist, which I happen to find myself in the state of being. So rest assured, I am going to spend time going through these RPGs and at minimum talking about what happens in the story and maybe what I end up getting, what the story takes me down versus the canon ending. But if you want to watch me go through each one as they are, if you had fun, if it was entertaining to see me actually go through them and mess up or not mess up and succeed and get the right ending, let me know if there's any way I can make those more entertaining. If you guys want to see that, if those are fun, I really want to experience and review each piece of media as it's intended to be done. Like when I start to get around to video games, I'm going to make a very heavily edited video of my gameplay from that video or from that game when I talk about those. So for the RPGs, although they're not as important as the video games, I want to authentically provide commentary and a review of those media in the Star Wars universe. So yeah, I guess if you're watching this one, let me know in the comments how you want me to approach these in the future. If you just want a summary of the stories, kind of like the comics, or if you want to actually see me play each one. So one other thing I will mention about these solo RPGs is that it looks like most of them are found in old books or magazines. When I say old, it's like the 90s. They haven't been in print in like 20 or 30 years, and they're pretty readily available online by certain fan websites, so I don't think you'll get really in any trouble for trying to find these. So next video will hopefully also be pretty exciting. We're going back to the comics and the Tales of the Jedi series, which I'm super excited to get back to covering, and it looks like we are going to be covering mostly comics and short stories until like part 30, when we're going to get into the Knights of the Old Republic. So these comics videos are my most fun to make, so I'm looking forward to that. So I will see you guys in the next one on the new channel, and may the Force be with you always.